So today this is lecture 7. So today we will discuss more on gain boosting. So recall that last time what we had done, we used the gain boosting technique to increase the gain of the MOSFET M1 using negative feedback like this. So what happened when we applied this operational amplifier in a negative feedback mode? It has increased the GM of this transistor by GM times A, where A is the gain of this operational amplifier. And please note that last time what we have discussed, we discussed that we will come up with some novel techniques so that we can increase the gain of the transistors without adding additional stages. And the advantage of using these type of topologies compared to adding additional stages is that it reduces the chance of instability, because what you are doing is you are not adding any nodes to the architecture, but what you are doing, you are increasing the gain by modifying the structure itself like this. So now we will see how we can replace this A using practical realizations using MOSFETs. So this is one of the ways of doing it, and here you can see that this dotted box is the amplifier A1 and this M2 is basically this transistor which is M1. And so you can see how the source of this M2 is connected to the gate of this M3, and the output of the output is taken from the drain of M3, which is connected to the gate. So this amplifier A1 is actually sampling the current from this node and applying voltage at the gate terminal of M2. So this is super transistor M2 with M3 acting as the auxiliary amplifier, and here you can see that M1 is acting as a common source amplifier where we are applying input to its gate terminal, and this as a whole or at the top of this amplifier M1 is acting as the active load. That is, it is acting as the load for this M1 transistor. So you might be thinking that how this circuit is equivalent to this circuit. So let's copy this first, so that now I'll tell you how this is equivalent to this circuit. So you know here this is an amplifier A. So the voltage that is generated over here is basically A times V in minus V minus. So it's basically what this amplifier is doing is it is amplifying with a factor A the difference of the voltage. So here if you see in this circuit, here I am saying that M3 is acting as the amplifier A. And how it is possible? It is possible because you know that voltage which is available here, which is Vp, and this is ground. So what is the drain current generated over here? The small signal drain current. The small signal drain current generated over here is Gm times Vgs. So it's basically Gm times Vg minus Vs. So you can say that Gm times Vg is V plus and Vs is V minus. So you can now see that the drain current that is generated is basically Gm times the difference of the voltage which is applied to this amplifier M3. And this drain current is the small signal drain current. So when you make a small signal equivalent of this circuit, what will that be? So when you create a small signal equivalent of a current source which is over here, let us say if that current source has a non-ideal resistance of RO, then during the small signal analysis, this part of the RO will be grounded, and the drain current which is ID, which is given over here, will flow through this RO. Then what will be the voltage generated at this point? It will be Gm times V plus minus V minus times RO. And what is V plus? V plus is Vp. So Gm times Vp and V minus is 0 times RO. So this is the effective voltage generated at this node. So this is equivalent to the voltage generated at this point, which is applied at the gate of M2. So now I hope you understand how this amplifier A is replaced by this amplifier M3. So this completes the understanding of this circuit. So let's discuss some more aspects of this amplifier. So in order to understand this, let me erase everything over here. So now what we want to discuss is first the available voltage at this point. What will that be? That is the minimum and the maximum voltage available for the sinusoidal swing at the V out. What will be the maximum and the minimum input voltage? The reason for asking that is, as you can see, this M1 is acting as a common source amplifier, and this part is acting as the active load for this M1 transistor. So we are effectively asking, if we excite the input of this common source amplifier M1 with this sinusoidal signal M here, so this is the small input signal, then what will be the range of excitation we will get at the output of this common source amplifier M1? So ideally it has to be inverting amplifier because it's a common source amplifier. So we want to see what is the maximum and the minimum range of this output voltage. So as you know that the maximum range of this output signal will be VDD minus VD sat of I2. This is the maximum voltage that the output signal can reach. How about the minimum one? How to calculate it? So let me erase this. So you can see there are two paths to evaluate the minimum range. One is this path and another one is this path. So in the first path, let us say this is first path, this is the second path. In the first path, what is the minimum voltage V min? The minimum voltage V min will be VD sat of M2 plus VD sat of M1. And if we follow the second path, then what will be the minimum voltage? The minimum voltage, if we follow the second path, is VD sat of M2 plus VGS of M3, because this is VGS of M3. So what is the maximum out of these two? So the maximum out of these two is this one. How? Let us say these two are equivalent. Let us say these two values are equal. So the value will be 2 VD sat here. And how about this? This is VD sat plus VGS M3. Let us subtract and add 1 VTH from it. So if we do that, then this is VD sat. This is again VD sat. And this is VTH. So effectively you are having 2 VD sat plus VTH. So now you know that this voltage, this minimum is more as compared to this minimum. So effectively this will dominate. So the minimum will be 2 VD sat plus VTH. And this is not good because we want minimum voltage to be 2 VD sat and we do not want VTH here. And if we can come up with some topology which can remove this VTH, then it will be good for us. So ideally we want 2 VD sat, but for this particular topology we have 2 VD sat plus VTH, which is again the demerit of this particular circuit. And second, what is the gain of this particular amplifier? The gain of this amplifier can be easily calculated by putting the value of A, which is the gain of this common source amplifier M3, into this expression which I have already written over here. So you can see that as I have given you as an assignment to calculate the gain of the amplifier, which is this one. So you can put the value of the gain A over here and you will get the voltage gain for this particular complex circuitry. So this is an exercise for you to calculate, and the value of the gain for this particular topology is GM1 RO1 GM2 RO2, then we have GM3 RO3 plus 1. So this is very easy once you have derived the equation which I have asked you in our earlier lecture to do. So what you have to do is just substitute the gain of this particular amplifier in that expression and you will get this. So as discussed, how to get 2 VD set instead of 2 VD set P plus VTH. So we have to come up with some alternative architecture to get this range. So in order to get this range, what we are doing is we will modify this amplifier architecture, and what we will do, we will create this architecture which will give you 2 VD set at the lower end. How is it possible? So it's possible by the fact that this potential which is over here can now freely move, and this potential is VD set M1. Earlier it was not the case, but now it is VD set of M1, and which is also represented as VGS1 minus VTH1. So you can represent both of them are equivalent. And what is this potential? This potential is VD set of M2. So the total potential is basically 2 VD set, and this 2 VD set is basically the V out minimum swing. So the top swing is still VDD minus VD set, whereas the lower end of the swing is 2 VD set now. And this is only possible by using this architecture. So let us first discuss how it is possible that we are getting VP as VD set over here. So in order to do that, we have to calculate the range of values of P, that is the VP max and VP min, and see whether VD set satisfies this range. Sorry, it's other way around. That is VP min and VP max, and we have to see whether the potential VP, which is equal to VD set, what we are assuming, satisfies this range or not. So how to calculate the VP max? So in order to calculate VP max, you have to come from the supply voltage as we discussed last time. So in order to do that, let's come from this path. Then what is the value of VP max? The value of VP max is obtained by using this equation, which is VSG of M3 is greater than mod of VTH3, and this is one of the important constraints for the MOSFET M3 to operate. So what is VS? VS is VDD. What is VG? That is VG M3, let us say, and this is mod of VTH3. So VG of M3 is basically the VP max. So the VP max has to be less than VDD minus mod of VTH3. So this is the maximum value that you have for VP max. So what is the minimum value of VP? You have to come from this side. So in order to evaluate this, you know that this is the current source I1. So what will be the maximum voltage across this I1? It will be VD set of I1. So this is the drain potential here for M3. So in order for M3 to operate as in saturation, what is the equation? So which is VSG minus VSD less than mod of VTH3. So this is the equation for PMOS in saturation. So which is also equivalent to VD minus VG less than mod of VTH3. So what is the value of VD? The value of VD is VD set of I1 as discussed. And what is VG? VG is VP min less than mod of VTH3. So what is the value of VP min? The value of VP min has to be greater than VD set of I1 minus mod of VTH3. So you can see that clearly our VD set, which we are saying that this voltage is VD set, satisfies these two constraints, and it's lying in between. So we can say that VP is happily sitting at VD set. So this set of constraints are satisfied with VD set. So if we are assuming that the potential at VP is VD set, then we are happy with that. The advantage of this circuitry is that the minimum voltage that you are getting is 2 VD set, and it's not 2 VD set plus VTH. So this is one of the advantages that we are getting over here. And there is one drawback of this circuitry. What is that? So the drawback of this circuitry is, as we know that this is VD set of M1, then what is the value of this? The value of this point is, this is VGS of M2. So the value of this point will be VGS of M2 plus VD set of M1. So this is the potential at this node. And since this node and this node is connected together, then the voltage at the drain of M3 is also VGS of M2 plus VD sat of M1, right? And what is the potential at the gate terminal of this M3? The potential at the gate terminal of M3 is VD sat of M1. So in order for M3 to be in saturation, we will write again the saturation condition for M3, which is VSG minus VSD has to be less than mod of VTH3. From this we can reduce it to VD minus VG less than mod of VTH3. And what is the value of VD? The value of VD is VGS of M2 plus VD sat of M1. And then what is the value of VG? It is minus VD sat of M1 and less than mod of VTH3. From here what we conclude is that the VGS of the MOSFET M2 has to be less than mod VTH3. This is very difficult to achieve because normally we have to bias VGS of M2 greater than mod of VTH of 2 in order to make MOSFET M2 to operate out of cutoff region, because this is the condition for the MOSFET M2 to operate out of cutoff region. So if VGS M2 is less than VTH2, then the MOSFET M2 will be in cutoff. And also you know that the difference of the VTH3 and the VTH2, because VTH3 is the threshold voltage of PMOS and VTH2 is the threshold voltage of NMOS, they are nearly same, but it happens to be that the threshold of PMOS is slightly greater than, it's not that far, but slightly greater than NMOS. So this constraint is still satisfied for transistor M3 to operate in saturation. But normally this boundary, that is the threshold voltage of PMOS, is roughly equal to NMOS, because normally this boundary is very less. It so happens that VGS M2 is greater than VTH3. So if that is the case, then this M3 will enter into triode region, because for saturation it has to be less, but in triode region it has to be greater than VTH3. And the reason I have pointed out that the boundary between the threshold of PMOS and NMOS is very less. So it might be possible that VGS M2 is set at value greater than VTH3. So once that situation happens, then M3 will enter into triode, and if M3 enters into triode, this amplifier A1 will lose its gain, because if the MOSFET enters into triode, its gain decreases. So if that gain decreases, that is the A1 decreases, then the overall gain of this amplifier will also decrease. So this is not desirable. So this is the undesirable effect of this topology. And what is that undesirable effect? The undesirable effect is that the range for which this gate voltage can fluctuate is very less. The moment it becomes more than VTH3, this transistor M3 will turn into triode, and the whole concept of amplifier regulating the drain current of M1 will go. So this is the main problem of this circuitry. Otherwise, the output minimum that we were getting here was VD set, which was a 2 VD set, which was according to our objective. So let's discuss another topology which provides 2 VD set at the output, and also it doesn't have this problem of M3 entering into triode. So in order to solve this problem in which M3 is entering into triode is done using this topology. So now what we are doing, we are adding this additional transistor M4. So this additional transistor M4 is lifting up the range for this gate voltage. Earlier the fluctuation in the gate voltage was very limited, and what was the constraint? The constraint was that this gate voltage, that is this gate to source voltage, has to be less than VTH3 for this M3 to work in saturation, and this is very narrow region as discussed. And if you slightly go beyond this VTH3, that is if you make VGS2 greater than VTH3, then M3 will immediately turn into triode region. So what M4 is doing is M4 is lifting this constraint by adding a delta X here. So if let us say VGS2 is less than VTH3 plus delta X, then at least we have some margin. And what is that margin? That margin is that this range is increased, and you can still, and the fluctuation of the VGS can be more now. So let us see how this margin is increased and what is the value of this delta X. So you can see earlier what was the voltage at this node. It is VGS of 2 plus VD set of M1, and we are coming through this path. So once we are at this point, which is VGS of 2 plus VD set of M1, what is the potential here? The potential here will be VGS of 2 plus VD set of M1 minus VD set of M4. So this is the potential at this node. And what is the potential at this node? The potential at this node is VD set of M1. So for M3 to be in saturation, what is the condition? The condition is VD minus VG has to be less than mod of VTH3. And this value is VD, this value is VG. So what will be the answer? You just subtract this term and this term. What you will get? You will get VGS of 2 minus VD set of M4 less than mod of VTH3. So what is the value of VGS2? VGS2 is mod of VTH3 plus VD set of M4. So this delta X is VD set of M4. So what's happening now? The range of value of VGS2 is increased. So that uncertainty is gone. Earlier what we were saying is that VGS2 has to be greater than VTH2 for M2 to operate out of cutoff region. What we have normally seen is that the threshold voltage of a NMOS device is slightly less than the threshold voltage of PMOS device. So if that is the case, this margin is very less. That is the boundary between the VTH2 and the VTH3. That is the magnitude of the VTH2 and the VTH3 is very small. There can be a chance that VGS2 becomes little more than VTH3, and at that point M3 will turn into triode. But now we are adding an extra element of VD set M4 along with this VTH3. So what is happening now? The range is increased. So let me explain it clearly. So earlier we had VTH2 here and VTH3 here, and they are very close to each other. So the range of VGS2, that is the fluctuation, that is the sinusoidal fluctuation that is required to move from VTH2 to VTH3 is very small. And it might be the case that this sinusoidal excitation can exceed VTH3. And at this point, where it exceeds VTH3, your M3 entered into triode. But now, for this circuitry, we have VTH2 here, and then we have VTH3 plus VD set of M4. So the range is increased, and now you have larger fluctuations of the input swing. That is the swing that is available at VGS2, and you can tolerate a larger amount of it. So that is the advantage we have using this circuitry. And another advantage of using this circuitry is that the output swing is still 2VD set and not 2VD set plus VTH. So these are the three circuits that are typically used in replacement for this amplifier, which is the gain boosted amplifier. So this finishes off with all the three different variants, and next what we will discuss is how to use these variants in folded cascode and telescopic amplifiers. So the next thing that we will see is how to incorporate these gain boosting circuits on existing telescopic and folded cascode amplifiers. So the very first circuit diagram which is shown over here is basically the application of gain boosting techniques on simple cascode amplifiers. So if A1 and A2 were not there, then M3 and M1 forms a cascode amplifier. And now what you are doing, you are actually connecting the output of this terminal, which is the connection between the M3 and M4, to the amplifier A1, and the output of that is used to regulate M3. So in this way what you are doing is you are incorporating gain boosting technique to the existing cascode amplifier, that is the differential amplifier given over here. And one thing to note here is that you can replace these two amplifiers, which are A1 and A2, by using a single fully differential amplifier. We will discuss this fully differential amplifiers later on also, but I had given you slight introduction of these fully differential amplifiers in our first lecture. So what this fully differential amplifier is, it takes two inputs plus minus and generates two outputs minus plus. So what we are doing is we are connecting these two terminals X and Y to the inputs of this fully differential amplifier, and the output of this fully differential amplifier are this and this. and they are connected to M3 and M4. So in this way what you are doing is you are reducing the number of transistors that are used here by half. So whatever these A1 and A2 are doing, it's done by single fully differential amplifier which is present over here. So let's see how we can realize this in terms of the existing gain boosting amplifiers. So this is the circuitry that we have where M5, M6 forms the differential amplifier. You can see that M5 and M6 has two terminals, plus and minus, let us say, and it is controlled by the current source ISS where their sources are connected, and it generates two outputs which is here, that is minus and plus, and these minus and plus outputs are fed back to the M3 and M4. Now you can see that M5 M6 is actually the fully differential amplifier which we were discussing here. So everything is fine about this, but the only problem here is if we discuss the output swing here. So if I want to calculate the minimum output swing at this point, what will that be? So there are two ways of achieving the output swing. One is through this path, and the another one is straight down like this. So we have to see both these paths and decide which path dominates. If we go through the purple path, then the Vout min will be VD sat of M3 plus VGS of M5 plus VD sat of ISS. Right or not? This is VD sat of M3, then you go VGS M5 down, and then we have VD sat of ISS 2. If you go through this path, then what will be the Vout min? Then Vout min is VD sat of M3 plus VD sat of M1 plus VD sat of ISS1. So effectively it is 3 VD sat. And here if you want to calculate in terms of VD sat, then how will you do it? You can add and subtract 1 VTH. So this is basically VD sat. So we have 3 VD sat plus VTH through this path, and here we have 3 VD sat. So in order to compare this what we see is this term will dominate because it is plus VTH. And why this will dominate? This has to dominate because it has to take care of M5 and this ISS2. So if we say that Vout minimum is 3 VD sat, then what will happen is, then it might happen that this M5 will go into triode. So we have to use 3 VD sat plus VTH so that every transistor in this circuitry is in saturation. But if you consider only the simple self cascode amplifier, that is the simple cascode differential amplifier, in that if you see, then the Vout minimum here was 3 VD sat. But now with this architecture, the Vout minimum is 3 VD sat plus VTH. So it's a penalty that you are paying for getting high gain over here. And why high gain? Since we are using gain boosting technique, obviously the gain of this particular topology will be much higher than that of the self cascode amplifiers. But you are paying the price of getting higher Vout min. So this is the main disadvantage of this amplifier. So let us see how we can modify this architecture so that the Vout min constraint which we are getting over here is reduced to 3 VD sat. So this is the modified circuit where we are using level shifted folded cascode amplifier. So this is folded cascode version, that is it is the PMOS folded cascode version, and this is the same circuit, like this part is the same as we have discussed in detail about this circuit over here. You can see this. So this is the same circuit over here. So now if you want to see the voltage constraints at this point, that is this point which is Vout, how to calculate it? So now what you can do is you can go through this path, and The voltage that is allowed at this point X is VD set. And the discussion about this voltage we have already done here. So you recall that how we have justified that this point P will have the voltage VD set, and we have defined the maximum and minimum range of this point P, and we have also shown how VD set is lying between these two ranges, that is the maximum VP max and minimum VP min. So we have shown that how this VD set is satisfied within this range. And please note that the VP min that I had calculated earlier, you can see the earlier part of this video. The VP min was VD set of I1 minus V threshold of 3. So you can see clearly here that this term is negative. So even if this point P goes negative, still everything will work. So this point P can go below 0 also. That is very important. So with the same constraint, this point X here is the same as the point P that we have discussed just now. So this point X can also go below 0 also in terms of the small signal swing. But right now what we are saying is, let us say it has VD set as the minimum drop across it. So if that is the case, what is the output swing available here at the output node? It is VD set of M3, then VD set of M1, and then VD set of ISS1. So V out for this particular topology is VD set of M3 plus VD set of M1 plus VD set of ISS, and if you combine all these three together, it is 3 VD set. So now we have achieved the value of 3 VD set at the output and the benefits of differential topology using PMOS folded cascode version. So this finishes off with the application of using gain boosted amplifiers in the cascode structures, that is the cascode differential amplifiers, which is given over here. And why it is cascode differential amplifier? Because M1 and M2 are the main differential amplifiers and M3 and M4 are the cascode branches for this M1 and M2. So this is the main amplifier, whereas we are using this part of the circuit to enhance the gain of this amplifier without adding additional nodes to the circuitry. So what is the advantage of adding these two blocks? The advantage of adding these two blocks is increase in the amplification but without adding any additional nodes, and hence the stability is still retained. So this again shows the full version of the fully differential amplifier with the loads. So right now what we had done was, for this case what we had done was, we had analyzed up to this part. You can check also that we analyze only this part, but now on top of it we have added this block. So this block is acting as the load for this differential amplifier M1 and M2. Actually load of M1 M2 starts from this side itself, but due to symmetry I am saying that this is the PMOS load and this is the NMOS load. And please note that for this version, that is this NMOS version, the amplifier that we have used here is the PMOS version of the folded cascode. So as complementary to that, when all these transistors are PMOS, so what kind of folded cascode structure should we use for this A2? It has to be NMOS folded cascode. Similarly, this structure incorporates these boosting techniques, that is using A1 and A2, but the whole structure is folded cascode structure or differential amplifier. This one is the telescopic differential amplifier. So within these telescopic and folded cascode differential amplifiers, we are using these gain boosting amplifiers to further enhance the gain, and we are not adding any additional nodes, so the stability of these differential amplifiers will be not compromised. So this is all with respect to the gain boosting topic. So we will discuss other topics in our next lecture.